Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Metal Playground. Today we're talking headlights. I'm going to unbox, fit, test, and give my honest opinion about a very popular set of 5x7, 7x6 LED headlights. This is going to be the model that has the daytime running light as well as the indicator built into the actual housing of the light. And you most commonly see this headlight used in Navaras, Hiluxes and Jeeps. So let's have a look at it and I'll tell you what I think at the end. Alright, I think it's only fair to show you what the old headlights look like before. Now bear in mind this actually does them justice. For some reason they appear a lot brighter in the video and a lot fuller than they did in actual person. What you're seeing here is actually about 25% brighter than what they are in person. But I want to talk about two of the reasons that I want to go over to the LED. Number one reason being that I like LEDs. When I run light bars and spotlights of any kind, I usually run them in LED. So the reason for me choosing LED headlights is because it's the same type of light as what I'll be running later on. Whereas if you're running two different types of light, the LED light bars will often wash out your headlights, and then when you flick it off when you're passing somebody on the road, you can not see a damn thing, and that can be a little bit dangerous. The second reason for me wanting to run LEDs is because they draw less power, as I'm sure you probably already know. If you've ever run an XJ before, you'll know the headlight plunger is terrible in them. It basically gets direct power from the battery and it heats up quite a lot when you run a normal headlights, so hopefully switching over to one that draws less power is going to cool that down a bit, because they get to the point where they actually melt. And the third reason for me wanting to choose LEDs is because they're dirt cheap, especially this set. This set was $87 AUD, and that was for the both of them, not one. Whereas a good set of headlight globes, what I'd run in my day-to-day car, you'd be looking upwards of 110 AUD. So if I make it any visual gains at all, that's a win in my opinion. Alright, the first thing I noticed is the packaging on these lights is actually a lot better than I expected, and it's definitely a lot better than most of the eBay parcels I've been getting lately. They actually come with quite a bit of bubble wrap around them. Could be a little bit more, they're a little bit loose fitting in the box, but for $87 I wouldn't expect much more. First thing I noticed when I got them out of the box was these fins on the back. They're actually supposed to operate as a heatsink, and that's to draw away heat from the lights, not that I suspect that they'll have a whole lot. The face on them seems uncracked and looks quite nice. As you can see, they've got a plug and play wiring harness which should make the install pretty easy. Second one also looks uncracked from what I can see through the film. Not really sure what these plugs are. I think they're some type of drain, but this one was actually cracked. Not really sure if you can see it in the video there. But other than that, they're unscathed. That's the only defect I could find in the lights. As always, it's a good practice to unhook your battery, as you should always do whenever you're doing anything electrical. We're going to start with the driver's side. Now to get to it, obviously you're going to have to pull off the eyelid, or otherwise the headlights around. And then once you get that off, there'll be the little coupling that holds the headlight in, which has got 4 bolts in it, or 4 screws, 2 up the top and 2 down the bottom. Not really sure how much of that you can actually see in the video, especially if you're on a phone or something, but the actual headlight that I had before was cracked, which is probably part of the reason that I wanted to replace them originally. Just makes it look a little bit more tidier if they're not all cracked and stuff. It there and hope for the best at the moment. I'll get the other one out, because this piece here is supposed to light up, and it's meant to be you can have it as a daytime running light or an indicator, and because my indicator's outside, I'm going to try and use the indicators to see if that makes a difference. and start.
No go.
Would probably help.
Yay! They work! Yep. Blinded by the light.
Hell yeah, they're bright as. Because in there, one of those should be a ground wire, which means that it should be already earthed out, and both of these are going to be a power wire, I think. So I'm going to run a power wire up to the battery and tap it to see what happens when these come on. They should be fine. They shouldn't warm up or anything. What I'm going to do is take that and touch it on those other wires straight to the battery and see what happens. Should light up, hopefully. One should be orange when I tap it once, and then the other should be white, or vice versa. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
You sure?
Yep.
Don't want to get in there and then it not be usable. Right. There we go.
Yeah.
That's your daytime running light.
Mm-hmm.
Now if I'm correct, which I think I am, that one should turn it orange. So that's your indicator. Interesting. You recording this?
Mm-hmm.
These are the clips that I was going to use, and I just found them coming off the headlight, off the indicator. There's a good chance that these are hooked up to my indicator anyway, so let's try that, I guess. That's probably why my indicator started playing up. One of these is probably arcing out on something. Okay, at this point it had become time to test the indicators. I'd hooked them up to the dodgy wiring that it had already found stashed up in the headlight there. I was pretty much bang on the money, it was straight to the indicators. And the indicator's working now. That's what it was. It was those wires the whole time. Somebody had hooked up dodgy wiring and it must have been arcing out on my body. And because it was arcing out on my body, it was making this one tick really fast. I thought it was weird that it happened all of a sudden. So that's what the indicator in them is going to look like. I quite like that. I did want to run the daytime running light, but I don't think you'd be able to run both. I'm going to black these out because in Australia they're fake. In America I think it is. This is a hole and they actually have indicators in them, but these don't. And they look terrible, so I'm going to black them out. I'm going to black the original indicators out till I put a bull bar in. And it'll look a bit tidier hopefully. So after figuring out the placement of where I wanted the lights, what ones I wanted to run, and which wires went to what, decided I was going to tidy up the wiring because the job that they did just was unacceptable. There's just wires going everywhere and just an absolute mess. And as you've seen in previous videos, I like to keep my stuff fairly tidy at least. And if I have to run hard wires, then I like to have them soldered so they don't come apart. Otherwise just setting yourself up for a headache later. And after I had them soldered, of course I used the heat shrink, and then the spare wire that was there I just wrapped it all in electrical tape just to try and keep it dry. Even though it's got no live power running to that wire, it's better to be safe than sorry. And it just looks a bit neater than leaving it flapping about in there. At this stage it's time for Humpty Dumpty to go back together again. You're gonna have to forgive me because the footage starts to get a little worse here, but that's because it's getting darker and the cameras just can't handle it. It's not a very good one. So if you start to notice a decline, that's why. Right, at this stage it was all back together and it was time to wait for it to get dark enough to go and test them out. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do one clip showing just these headlights, and then I'm going to put them next to the other headlights in a side by side. And then at the end of it I'll do a picture comparison of what it looked like before the headlight install and after the headlight install so you can see the differences, but I quite like the way they look. The first thing I notice about the new lights is there's like a spot beam as shown on the screen here, fair in the middle. Now this only comes on at higher beam, so it makes it ideal for driving at night, especially on longer roads like highways and such. Second thing I notice is the wide spread. These lights have a much wider spread on the sides of them than the old lights did, which is good because if anything's sitting on the side of the road over night time and you're worried about it running out in front of you like animals, you can clearly see them. But this had me a little bit worried on the driver's side because I thought I might have been blinding oncoming drivers. But I've been running these lights for well over a month now with no issues. I've never had anyone flash me or anything like that, so I guess they're not as bad from my perspective. The only real complaint I have about the lights is that they have little bar gaps in between the LEDs and you can actually see them on the headlights, which causes it to throw a much shorter and less full low beam than I would like. But other than that, I have absolutely no complaints. I've been running them, as I said, for well over a month now, and they've been absolutely excellent. Worked every time, no flickering, no issues. So if you're considering doing it and it's within the guidelines of the lights in your state, I'd recommend doing it. They're easy to do, and if you don't like them, they're cheap enough you can just resell them or give them to a friend or whatever. But this is one of those rare cheap mods that I think is going to be one of my favorites for a good time. And now I'm going to do a comparison on the screen of what they look like next to the old headlights, and then I'm going to show you a picture of what they look like sitting in the daytime. Purely for aesthetics only, of course.